Well, good evening, everybody. Another clear and cold evening here in Texas. Got kind of a stagnant weather pattern, but should be nice for the next maybe couple days here. Tomorrow is when I'm going to take off to the Denver Weather Conference, and we'll try to do the show on the road. It's all going to depend on the hotel internets and how well those work out. And I don't know what those are like these days, but we'll find out. And if worse comes to worse, I'll just stop the webcasts and we'll try again the next day. And definitely subscribe to the Twitter feed if you want to keep up on what's going on, because I will start using that. You can see there's a lot of warm air up in Canada, so our cold polar air mass is pretty much shut down. Temperatures up there are in the 30s and 40s. We're talking about this region right there. That's the continental polar air mass source region for this part of the country right here. High temperatures in that area, you can see though, actually we've got a few 40s and 50s and even 60 around the Edmonton area. It's a little bit unusual. So likewise, up in North Dakota, 30s and 40s, and I'm sure Fred is pretty happy with that there. You can see 50s and 60s down in Texas, and back in Southern California, 70s. So things are a lot more mild. And part of the reason for that is this ridging up in Western Canada. So we have a large area of subsidence right in this area right here. The subsidence is mostly in the mid-levels in this part of the atmosphere right here. In here, it's mid-levels and lower levels because it's worked its way down from higher altitudes closer to the surface. So we see a lot more warm air making it to the surface in this area right here. So temperatures are quite a bit warmer. But this area here between the troughing and ridge downstream, that's an area of cooling, upper lift, and clouds. So that's mostly working on the West Coast area right now. And also, we've got this cutoff flow down in northern Mexico. Looks like maybe the center of the circulation is in this area just south of Arizona. We'll check out the water vapor imagery to find that. And as usual, East Coast troughing. So things are a bit wintry out there, temperatures below normal. And this is a pattern we've been locked into for the past 3 to 4 weeks. There's the cutoff flow down in northern Mexico. So you see we can use the water vapor imagery to pinpoint exactly where the center of the circulation is. So we've got this dry slot working around the west part of the low. And that's the reason we've got a lot of dry air across Mexico, or Oklahoma and New Mexico. And then a little bit of the moisture down to the south that's being tapped across central and western Texas. So maybe we'll get a little bit of a change in the next day or two, actually. We'll watch for that right there. And you can see that the main area of baroclinicity probably going to be somewhere in here, so we'll be looking for that also. So to segue right into that, main area of baroclinicity looks to be all the way down in Mexico. Got just only a couple of thickness lines right there. So we're talking about maybe this area right here. That's where our polar front is right now. And then this area here, this is barotropic. So this is mostly the old occlusion. We've got a cold core system right there, and that's probably generating a few showers. Strongly diurnal showers in the mountains of northern Mexico right there. East coast of the U.S., the most recent front has moved offshore, located right in this area right here. Warm front just east of the Maritimes, and very strong cold air advection across Virginia and North Carolina and the Ohio River region. So here's your strong cold air advection area, and we've got what looks like a bit of a cold pool aloft over Lake Huron and Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, so basically right in this area here. Toronto, London, Kitchener out in that area right there. And then we see the thermal ridge across the Canadian prairies. Lots of warm air right in that region right here all the way down to the Denver area. And then going out to the west coast, you can definitely see our front coming on shore, and we see that we've got kind of a moderate strength to that front, moderate to strong, cold front looking right like that. So we're going to find that in the Eureka and Arcata and Portland area. Warm front, it's hard to pick out exactly where that is, but I might go with kind of a medium position right there in Washington. This is where we're going to have to look at the surface data across this axis right here. Let's get that started up. I'll load up digital atmosphere so we can get a nice detailed surface chart. And this is pretty easy to use. If you want to download surface data, you just go to Data, Retrieve Data, and then we've got this panel right here. And then our data is loaded. So very easy to do with this program right here. And this is at the weathergraphics.site if you want to check into that right there. Okay, so let's see. Let's check out our map across the west coast. Pull up our plots. Give me a second. Let me turn off the heater. Okay. Well, look at Siberia there. Below zero. Very cold up there. The Bering Sea area, I don't know if you heard, but there was a fishing boat problem up around St. Paul Island. We're talking about this area right here. They had some sort of missing, I can't remember how many people, probably 6, but they were lost at sea in this area. Sad to hear that, and that's very rough seas. You can see air temperatures are around 10 to 0. So I don't know, kind of sad right there. Okay, then you can see the data plot density, very dense, and we can control that in digital atmosphere. All we have to do is there's data plot crowding, we just run that back. So that's one advantage of using these programs to do your maps. You can have some control over the plot. And now you can see it's a little bit better. So let's check out the west coast here. And remember, the axis that we were talking about is through this area right here. Well, looks to be a lot of warm air. You can see up in the mountains of British Columbia, 40s. Actually, these aren't the mountains. These are in the broad valleys. 40s and 50s. That's going to be quite a bit above normal. So I'm not really sure where we're going to place that warm front. It may be either pretty far offshore like this, and there's the low connecting to the cold front like that. It's either going to be like that, or it could be something like this right here, maybe slightly warmer air to the south. And then this area is kind of rain-cooled. There's some wet bulbing going on here. Let's check out the 850 through 1,000 millibar thickness and see if we can get a handle on that a little bit better. 1,000 through 850 millibar thickness right there. We'll pull that up and see what that shows. And I guess I don't really see much of a warm front gradient. So what I would probably do in a situation like this, I would, I would look at the operational concerns, because we're forecasting maybe for this area. So we're going to be interested in baroclinicity down in this region right there. So it doesn't have to exactly match up with what's going on in Canada. We might probably go with a bit of a warm front right there, separating the maybe drier air. See the dew points 40s and 30s contrasting with, I don't know about the 31, that's probably an outlier, but we see 54 there, 49, 53. Yeah, these are going to be from the inland deserts, so that's one possibility right there we could go with. That could be an area of baroclinicity. Then we could look at frontogenesis functions. And for that, you're probably going to have to go to the SPC site. And let me see if I can bring that up. SPC experimental. And they've got this mesoanalysis graphics site or page you can use here. So we're going to look at the northwest where we have a lot of rain moving inland. And that's going to be probably under the, let's see, maybe the surface pattern or the surface drop down. Wonder exactly where they would put this. Okay, yeah, here we go. It's going to be under the layer, the upper airfields. So perhaps we can look at some of the lower levels, 925 through 850, get a little bit above the low-level patterns. And let's see here. Not really seeing much of anything in that area, but that's one product you can use. Okay, 50 millibar. Let's see here. Yeah, not much help there either. So I think in this case I would pretty much go with the surface chart here. And sometimes these patterns do kind of shape up. And so you might look at the NAM forecast 6 to 12 hours out. And that can kind of tell you if something is firming up in that area right there. Okay, let me keep things moving along here and go to the, let's see here, go to the next panel. Soundings. We've got some pretty clear weather here in Texas, and I always advise looking at fair weather patterns so you can kind of contrast that with stormy situations. You can see a pretty strong lapse right there, so that shows we have air mass modification, probably some polar air settling in and modifying in the lowest 4,000 feet or so. And then you see that we've got mid-level subsidence working across the area. So there's probably a little bit of downward motion in this area, giving us drier air and warm temperatures at the bottom of that layer there. Okay, this is probably a good time to go to chat and make sure there's no problems. I got kind of a little bit too far into the discussion. Got a pretty good crowd here. Let's see, we got Andrew. Yeah, he mentioned the smiley faces, and YouTube looks like ducks. Michael checking in, Kevin checking in, Jason also. Mark and Ray Woody, Brett Dean. It's still cold in southern Jersey with a lot of wind. Greg Higgins says golf weather in Fort Worth tomorrow. Caldio Delphi. Fred Reamer up in North Dakota. Mark says 3 to 5 inches in New Hampshire tonight. Sarah Wood is here. Fred Reamer, record highs in North Dakota later this week. That's going to be that ridge, mid-level subsidence working across the area. And remember, as this works eastward, you get into deeper and deeper layers of subsidence as you go west. So that's the reason we're seeing things getting warmer in the Dakotas. You can see 24 hours out now, the ridge is on top of there, very deep subsidence working across that region. Sarah Wood saying, looking forward to the upper 50s and 60s for Indiana. S. Kinney is here. Mike, getting good rain in Brookings, Oregon. Sunny and 68 at Denver. Wow, it's almost time to pull out the swimming pool. Chaser Khan looking good. Jason Boggs says 90 degrees the past weekend with heavy snow in the Texas Panhandle yesterday. The different layers for phonogenic functions. That's probably a good thing to go into for a workshop, because that gets into a pretty complicated area. But yeah, we do look at different layers. It really depends on where the thermal gradients are setting up at. Kevin McKinney, with the surface streamlines on digital atmosphere show the front. Well, maybe we could probably give that just a very quick look and then move on here. Wind streamlines looking like that. You might see a little bit of convergence right there. That's one indicator that can show up. So you can use that also right there. And I probably prefer to use just pure divergence and convergence. And the map's getting a little bit complicated, but you can see kind of like a convergence area along this axis right there. So I think we would be looking at maybe south of Portland for a frontal location. Sarah Wood not making it to ChaserCon this time. Michael Burrell, okay, and Sarah Wood. All right, very good. Let's move on to our GFS. Actually, we'll move to the, we'll go look at the 500 millibar dynamics. This is a good time for that. So, the forecast for the next week or so. Okay. Going to see that low pulling up into Texas right here. You can see we're starting to get some short waves moving up into the state starting tomorrow. This is tomorrow right here. So you see that moving up into Texas. So I guess there are chances of some showers are going to be going up. And then there's ridging moving into the Dakotas right there. Very strong trough digging through the area south of South California. And we see that approaching Texas on Sunday and Monday. So rain chances going to be focusing basically south of the Four Corners area into Texas right there. Then we see some waves moving across the Dakotas. So the northern stream starting to affect the northwestern U.S. right there. So you see right there some very strong troughing, and then weaker troughs moving through the flow right there. And also the jet stream. That's not only showing on the wind plots, but we see the channeling of the flow right there. So you're going to place that on the south side of the cyclonic channeling. And then you can kind of make out kind of a large-scale channeling going on here. Lots of reds up here, lots of blues down here. So that's another way you can find that jet stream pattern. Okay, then going to next week into Wednesday and Thursday, big trough moving into California. I think our moisture was showing to be kind of not as strong next week. So maybe a little bit of a reprieve there for California. Kind of some large-scale troughing across the western U.S., so we'll probably see a little bit of a cool down later next week. And then we get a carbon copy. I think this is a carbon copy of the weather we had a few days ago. Or is that right now? No. Yeah, that's a pattern I was seeing a few days ago right there. And then we see the big ridge moving in. Yeah, look at that. We've got northerly flow starting to build in, so that might change the patterns a little bit. That's going to break down that warm pattern across western Canada. Yeah, compare that with right now. See that big ridge across the Canadian prairies? We don't have that 300 hours out. Much different northerly flow, so that's going to help assist with a cool down in the northern and possibly central plains going into the very end of February. Okay, so let's look at the surface patterns over the next week, and we'll get that going. So there we go. A lee side trough across Colorado starting out right now. And then we see pretty much fair weather. This is the area of downslope flow. So we're going to see very warm conditions across Texas and Oklahoma tomorrow. And I'm not sure where I'm going to be tomorrow night. I'm going to try to do a webcast tomorrow if internet's working out okay. And I'll probably be somewhere in the Amarillo area. Depends how far we make it. And then for ChaserCon and just Friday night in general, looks very good through this area right here. Looks like a little bit of a low starting to form there in the Lubbock area. Very strong moisture coming up from the Gulf. And then we see strong Pacific system moving onshore right there. So lots of rain for California tomorrow. Then going into the weekend, much of the focus of that system is going to be in northern Mexico. But it looks like we get some showers there on Sunday night. Then going into Tuesday and Wednesday, we get a little bit of a northern stream system going. So we're going to put the front kind of like this. So Fred right there, eastern North Dakota is going to be looking for that to come in this area on Tuesday night. And then you see cold air advection in the northern plains right here. Cold northern wind coming down behind this cold front right there. So that's going to be on Wednesday. Then for Thursday and Friday, very strong system coming into the central plains. So there's our fronts right there. Occluded front up in North Dakota. And there could be a little bit of a dry line pushing out into parts of Texas. This is Friday the 24th. So that's going to move eastward on Friday going into Saturday the 25th. Warm front well up to the north, maybe some showers along that front in Illinois. And then very strong cold air advection working into Texas and Missouri and Arkansas. Another system coming up there at the end of the week or the end of the month. And you can see a very large change in the pattern. Lots of cold air coming down from Canada late in the month. Okay, that's about all I got for tonight. Just a quick look at the chat. Mike Estwick commenting on the system across Arizona and New Mexico. Yeah, destabilize the air mass. And Brett Dean comments on, yeah, the loaded gun right there. All right, so I guess I'm done for tonight. Anyway, I appreciate y'all watching. Again, subscribe to the Twitter feed if you want to keep tabs on what's going on, and I'll probably update you a bit on where I'm at and let you keep track of the progress. Other than that, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good evening, guys.
Like, oh, man, it's